And we're on. Introducing Alex Bovee, co-founder and CEO at ConductorOne. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm great, dude. Thanks for having me on, Joe.
Yeah, it's all good, man. I know you're doing it at short notice before you get over here to Europe, so I appreciate that.
I can't wait. You promised me good weather, so I hope the
Uh,
UK delivers. We'll see.
you might get that in Rome, but not in London. But yeah, like I say, if you are heading this way, mate, if it is sunny, try and get down to the south coast and see me. But
Consider
yeah,
it
how you
done.
been? How's
Yeah,
things?
I've been great. Yeah, it's great. Speaking of good weather, I've been in Portland. I'm in the Pacific Northwest right now, and it's great weather. But yeah, no, I'm excited about some travel this summer.
Yeah, nice. It seems like another day, another breach, but we'll get onto some of that stuff soon.
Yeah, it does seem that way, doesn't it? Yeah.
Have you seen quite a lot of inbound traction with the stuff like the snowflake thing happening and
We do get asked a lot about it. I think, a lot of time we definitely try just like philosophically to not be ambulance chasey and things like that when it comes to customer breaches, whether it's the SaaS's fault or a customer fault or whatever. I do think with so many of those breaches, though, it's always really interesting to look at, how they happened, how you could prevent it. I never want to be one of those vendors who sort of proclaims like, if you had our solution, this wouldn't have happened. Like nobody wants to hear that, first of all. Second of all, it's usually just fundamentally not true. But yeah, but definitely trying to stay in tune with like what's happening in the
Mm,
market.
yeah. Well, look, Alex, with all my guests, I like to take it right back to where it all began and sort of how you got into the industry because you've got quite an interesting background.
Yeah, totally. So I mean, my background's mostly in product management. So I've spent a career in tech and in product management and security for most of my career. And most recently, before I was at ConductorOne, I was at Okta. I was leading security products there, and that was primarily about authentication and kind of like device aware access. We did some things around credentials, but there's a lot of just like front door type. How do we secure the authentication of the user before we go SSO them into like various different places? Um, and that just happened to be also where I really realized there's a huge opportunity around what we're doing at ConductorOne. So ConductorOne, we're a modern identity governance and just-in-time access solution. We help customers make sure that their employee and contractor and external identities are secure through just-in-time privilege management, visibility, self-service requests, access review automation, sort of the gamut of like those governance and permission management use cases. And to me, that felt like the huge gap when I was at Okta. Was great. We're focusing on solving all these kind of like front door problems, but there's all these challenges around the lifecycle management of permissions. There's this huge SaaS sprawl that's happening and infrastructure sprawl that's happening. And a lot of times companies don't even know if they have local IAM accounts in AWS that might have like privileges and permissions that are at risk. So it just felt like there was such an opportunity there to really approach the identity market from more of a security perspective. And
Mm,
that's why we started ConductorOne.
yeah. To be honest, it does seem like identity is like a bit of a hot, maybe even a buzzword right now. But you're 4 years in, right? 4 years in now, right?
Yeah, just about that. Yeah, we're coming on our 4 year anniversary.
Yeah, what would so talk to me about so what did you see back then? Because look, right now it is really hot, right? 4 years ago, I know it's a bold, but it wasn't as hot as it is now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the fun things about startups is you kind of almost have to predict the market a little bit, because by the time something gets hot, if you decide to start a company, then it's like you've got 6 months to build something. Like your timelines kind of shift out. And so I do think a big part of um, startups in general is getting that timing right. For me, what I saw 4 years ago that felt like the big opportunity was, we've got all these companies that have ran out, they've adopted SaaS, they've adopted cloud and infrastructure. I saw those same companies just starting to solve things like authentication, which is funny because it's so baseline, right? Like, hey, we need like more than a password to verify you when you log into your services. You'd be so amazed 5, 6 years ago, even how many companies like didn't even have 2FA on like their cloud services, which is kind of insane. So, it felt like companies were just getting there. But then when I would talk to really forward leaning companies that already kind of solved that problem, they were thinking about the next thing. They were thinking about, well, great, I've secured my front door, but what about improperly offboarded users? What about all these other, what about over permissioned users? We're trying to achieve zero trust and least privilege access control. How do I make sure people only get the privileges they need when they need it? There was all these security challenges that I would hear from these really forward thinking companies, that it solved authentication, that had to do with like these security challenges around identity. And I looked at that market and said, well, that sounds a lot like identity governance. I think there's some other things in there, like this just-in-time access piece felt like a different thing too, that was going to be new. That felt like, kind of the market we were going to be in. And then the other signal was, and the existing vendors in the space are not very good. so whenever you're a product person and you're like, okay, I've got a pain, it's only getting worse because of this trend that's happening. And the existing companies that are in the space, really don't serve the need, and they have legacy products that aren't good, and they're clunky, and they're long implementation cycles, and like all these things are true about these competitors. To me, that just felt like, okay, this is very clearly going to be a huge opportunity. And it may not be an opportunity today, which is when we started the company, roughly 4 years ago, but clearly it's going to happen over time, that this is going to kind of come to a head and become a major issue. And I think that's panned out mostly to be true.
Yeah, I was going to ask what is like the problem with some of the legacy like IGA tools. You sort of covered it, so we won't go too deep on it.
I actually love to talk more about it.
Yeah. All right, as
Because
long as you're happy.
I'll hit it on the head. Look, it's something that we're really passionate about. Is we looked at what the problems were that these legacy tools had, and then from a first principle standpoint, we said we want to build our product to not be those things. And so, the challenges of the legacy tools are first and foremost integrations. Being able to just get things connected into your environment can be extremely onerous. It can take a long time. It can, I've heard horror stories of people spending a year with legacy governance solutions to only get like 3 applications connected to it, which is just like absolutely insane. Like that's not at the speed of that companies need to do business today. So that's one piece. So the way that we solve that is through very opinionated connectors and integrations that just work out of the box. You can connect it to your environment and things just work. Most of our customers, they'll get 4 or 5 integrations set up in like a single session and like up and running and live, in a couple days. So that's thing one. The second piece is user experience, which I know is squishy, but I sort of think about the analogy like you don't see people walking around with like Motorola Razr phones for a reason. It's like that's like tech from 20 years ago, or maybe like 15 years ago. It's like you really want to use new technology that has better experiences, is faster, as quick, like all those things are true. And so a lot of the legacy solutions here just have legacy user experiences and in UI and UX, and they're not very good products from that perspective. So there's an opportunity to really reinvent the user experience to make it intuitive, beautiful, usable, and really great from that perspective. And then the third major piece I think is around just our perspective on how to get up and running with a product. So and how opinionated the product is. On the legacy tool side, you could make the argument that what you're really buying is like a bucket of tools. You're kind of buying you're buying a basket that has like a wrench and a screwdriver and like some nuts and bolts and like some wood planks and a table saw. And they're a little bit like, now go build your house. And you're kind of like, okay, cool. How do I do that? And they're like, well, here's a professional services team that can help you do that. By the way, that's going to cost 2 times as much as you paid for the software to like build that house. And to me, that's very much an anti-pattern from what companies want today. They want products that just work, are out of the box. Obviously, we have an implementation and customer success team that helps people get up and live and running, but like our implementations are weeks long, not like years long. And I think that's also just a huge fundamental difference.
Yeah, glad we went there. What so can you tell me a little bit more about ConductorOne from a product and feature perspective?
Yeah, our goal is to help companies across that full, identity security lifecycle. So from the discovery phase of identities, permissions, assets, shadow applications, through to the lifecycle management and security of those different assets. And so sort of first thing first with ConductorOne is about connecting it up to your environment. So, you add your AWS integration, you add your directory integration, you add your Active Directory on-prem integration, you kind of connect things up. The first thing that we do is we give you visibility across your environment. We'll tell you the identities, we'll tell you the permissions, we'll tell you the data that people can access, we'll tell you the roles that users have, we'll tell you the shadow applications in your environment. We'll just give you visibility across identity and access in your environment. And then where we really shine is in the workflow and the automation piece. So visibility is like helpful from a security perspective, but it's never a complete thing, right? Like just telling someone something can be interesting. What's more interesting in my mind is solving the problem and or making it so the problem never happens in the first place going forward. And so that's where a lot of the governance pieces come into place. So we have, role-based access control, automated provisioning to different roles based on your access matrix. We have joiner, mover, lever automation. We have access review automation. We have self-service enablement for application requests. We have just-in-time access for permission escalation to AWS and infrastructure and roles within your environment. And then we have all of that delivered from a very friendly user experience that spans command line tooling for more of your technical team. So, they can use our command line tool to escalate AWS permissions, through to like a Slack and Teams integration for end users to be able to do requests and do approvals, and ticketing integrations on the help desk side to kind of integrate where IT is already managing a lot of these workflows. So that's our goal, is to really be that end-to-end experience that again gives you visibility, but then most importantly automates it to help you actually secure your environment, actually achieve least standing privilege and zero standing privilege access.
Love that. I was really enjoying your inaugural annual identity outlook report. I'm not going to ask you to recite any of the statistics or that come out of it. I've got a couple here
Oh,
for you.
oh, thank God.
But one that really stood out was 81% of those that were involved in this were concerned about the access risk posed by non-human identities.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think what we're finding on the non-human identity side is that people just, first of all, they just don't know what they don't know. I see two major problems with it. One is that, and so API tokens, OAuth tokens, devices, and so forth. This is just a huge surface area of identity that has authorization and permissions associated with them. But most companies don't even know what's in their environment. And the reason they don't know is the second problem, which is many times these different credentials and sort of non-human identities and devices are actually individually managed or authorized by the end user. So if you just take like a basic OAuth flow between Google Workspace, any user, for the most part, if you've got Google Workspace as one of your IDPs, can log into some service and then authorize on behalf of their own user the ability for that service to read a bunch of data out of Google Workspaces, including your Google Drive, and share that data with that third-party service. And you as a security team and as an administrator have no idea that happened, have no idea what data is exposed in that context, have no idea, no way of discovering that and potentially remediating that. And that's just kind of like the OAuth piece, right? There's lots of different surface area here also across things like service accounts and so forth. And so I think people are really waking up and realizing that a lot of the innovations we've had with different SaaS applications, creating API tokens, creating support for OAuth connectivity between applications. What this just means is it's like dramatically spiraled and expanded the potential identity security risk, because it just, again, you have no visibility, and it can have massive implications to the data that's shared across service boundaries.
Yeah, I mentioned breaches earlier. The other one that caught my eye was 77% reported identity-based security incidents. Again, such a high number.
It is, but it's also like not surprising. I feel like, I mean, I've not actually gone back and looked at it, but I think if you even benchmarked the the Verizon security report every year, I think credential-based attacks is like always one of the top threats, always has been. I think that in general it just evolves and changes a little bit. So it's kind of gone from where it used to be about like brute forcing password, password stuffing, and kind of like password spraying attacks, just doing like basic credential based attacks on the services. And that really worked because companies didn't have MFA set up. And so you set up some basic MFA and you kind of break that. It's like, well, where does it go? Well, now we go to MFA based attacks, or now we just compromise the endpoint, get a bearer token for the user, and then use that to log into the services that have access to all this different data. And so I think what we're seeing is that those are still fundamentally identity-based attacks. It's not like you're attacking the infrastructure, the AWS infrastructure, by looking at a vulnerability in their EC2 machine. Like that's not really what a lot of attackers are doing. A lot of it still fundamentally has to do with popping that identity and then using that identity as lateral movement through different cloud services or infrastructure to get access to data and resources that they shouldn't be
Mm.
allowed to see.
Speaking about the space evolving, like I know you've not got a crystal ball, but what do you sort of expect for the next sort of five years? 'Cause say another 4 years, because you've done four already.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just a bet, I guess, on our company at some level. But I do believe that at some level, we're just going to continue to see consolidation on the identity security stack. I mentioned non-human identity. We have a non-human identity sort of aspect to our product and solution set there that helps customers solve that problem. That's just a part of our core identity security and governance solution offering, right? And I think what I found is that security buyers want to really buy a single product that's going to help them achieve an objective, even though it might be multiple use cases. They don't want to buy one product for access reviews and another product for self-service requests and another product for non-human identity and another product for role-based. That
Mm.
just gets exhausting at some point. So I definitely think that's going to happen. I do think another sort of, are we talking like security predictions?
Whatever you want to predict.
Yeah,
The
I
lottery
think
numbers.
I'm super optimistic about how AI is going to be used in a lot of security products. I think we're just like, it's so easy to think so much is figured out when you live and breathe it in the tech world, but the reality is that we are super early innings. We're like in the first or second inning right now on this, and I think we're going to see a lot of specialization around co-pilots in different domains. We're already kind of seeing it on things like like sales tech has adopted it. We're starting to see it with like legal tech, adopting like co-pilot solutions to look at legal documents and make recommendations on things. I think security and identity will be no different. We have a co-pilot, for example, that we've built that integrates with your help desk to automate things like self-service access requests and onboarding and offboarding and those kind of workflows. I have no doubt that given our domain expertise there and the data set that we have to make that good, that's just going to be a super value added experience for users. So I think we're just starting to scratch the surface there, but really excited about the sort of implication of specific AI bots that could be almost like personas in different domains, and then at like a product level, maybe even the AI implications of having like bots and co-pilots that can help automate a lot of the human processes and human judgment calls for those products.
Brilliant. What's keeping you up at night at the moment, Alex?
Oh man, as a founder, that's such a loaded question because it changes every night. I've gotten a lot more at peace with sleeping in general. So I would say I don't have many sleepless nights these days, but in general, it's all the startup stuff, right? It's thinking about growing the business, hiring and retaining the best talent, making sure we've got the right investors lined up and that kind of work. And making sure our customers are happy. It's in some ways it's like the fundamentals, but you're always thinking about that, and then you're always a little bit bouncing between those based on kind of what your focus is for that week or that month, or maybe what the fire of the day is, for example.
Yeah, I love it. And to wrap this up, Alex, what advice would you have given to your younger self when you were starting out as a founder, or what advice would you give any prospect founders? Did you get any good advice?
I got a lot of really great advice. I think two bits of advice. One is definitely the advice I would give to my first time founder self, if I could rewind things 4 years, would be to just trust my judgment on things a lot faster. I think, as a new founder in particular, you kind of have this, at least I had this sort of tendency to really think and really think and rethink decisions, make sure we're making the right decisions, and particularly when it relates to people and things like that. I think it's just sometimes like tough decisions. And I think I would stew on those things. And a lot of times what I found is like my judgment, my intuition was right. I just took 3 or 4 months longer than I should have to make a decision on something. So that would be one thing. And then the second thing, and this is coming from a place of Zen, is also to be okay giving yourself forgiveness. I think it's as a founder, I think at least successful founders in my mind are obviously very driven. You have to be to do the job, because there's a lot of things that don't go your way, and it's a really hard job. And those people necessarily, are driven, they work hard, they break through adversity. But at least in my case, you can also be kind of self-critical, and you can, judge yourself hard. Like if you did make the wrong decision or something didn't go well, oh, what could I have done better about that? And you can kind of be a little bit hard on yourself. And I think there's just there's something very graceful about saying what, it's okay. You didn't execute on that perfectly. You learn from it, move forward, and just don't dwell on it too much. So
Well,
nothing
that hit
specific
home.
about product or anything, but more about,
Yeah.
how to be as a founder, maybe.
Yeah.
Would be my advice there.
No, I appreciate that. Brilliant. Thanks for sharing that. Alex, absolute pleasure having you on, brother. And hope to see you soon when you're in Europe.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed today's show, please like and share with your friends and colleagues, as this is really important for the show's reach. If you'd like to be our next guest, or are interested in Aspiron Search's staffing solutions, please get in touch directly with me or reach out to us via our website www.aspironsearch.com.